Our learning objectives for this chapter include describing the physical geography, environment, people and settlement, migration patterns, culture, politics, economy, and social development of the North American region. As the greatest example of post-industrialized societies, Canada and the United States are shaped by modern technology, innovative financial and information services, and popular culture. These two countries comprise this region due to its historical colonization from Europe with Anglo-Saxon dominance in cultural traditions, industrialization, and affluence. This region is highly urbanized, mobile, rapidly globalizing, and has the highest rates of resource consumption on Earth. This map shows the political boundaries and the physical landscapes of the region. This region includes 13 provinces and territories of Canada and the 50 states of the United States, from the coastal plains in the east to the mountainous topography in the west, and is dominated by vast lowlands in between. Some of the landscape features to note are the coastal plains, Piedmont, Appalachian Highlands, the Great Plains, the Rocky Mountains, the Colorado Plateau with spectacular buttes and mesas, and the West Coast ranges. In this satellite image on the right, the view of the mid-Atlantic coast reveals the intricate and vulnerable low-lying shoreline of the Chesapeake Bay. The coast sector is characterized by drowned river valleys, barrier islands, and sandy beaches. The Piedmont zone and Appalachian Highlands appear to the northwest. This region is also plagued by hurricanes, affecting the southern part of the region in Florida all the way up the eastern seaboard. This photo on the left shows the coastal damage in New Jersey from Hurricane Sandy in October 2012. As you can see in the photo, the storm inflicted heavy damage on this portion of the Atlantic City Boardwalk. North America's climate and vegetation are highly diverse, mainly due to the region's size, latitudinal range, and varied terrain. Three distinct vegetation patterns exist in North America. The first is the boreal forest, or coniferous evergreen, which dominates the cooler continental interior. The second is the tundra, which is a mixture of low shrubs, grasses, and flowering herbs in the higher latitudes. And the third is the prairie with fertile soils and dominated with high grasslands in the drier continental climates. This photo shows the spectacular lake in Alberta's Banff National Park, which is the characteristic signature of alpine glaciation that are found in many portions of the Rocky Mountain region in both countries. This is one place that is for certain on my bucket list of places to see. Due to its extending latitudinal range, North American climates include everything from tropical savanna in the southern tip of Florida, denoted by the symbol AW, to tundra ET environments shown in the northern portions of Canada and Greenland. Most of the region's best farmland and densest settlements lie in the mild C or continental D mid-latitude climate zones. Looking at the climographs, you can see where it is the wettest in the summer and in the winter months. Where are the driest areas? And where is the rainfall steady year-round? Please pause the video, study the map and climographs, and answer the following. Compare and contrast the climate, temperature, and precipitation in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Churchill, Manitoba, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Miami, Florida, Los Angeles, California, and Vancouver, British Columbia. The cost of human modification in North America has been great. Industrialization and agricultural practices have transformed landforms, soils, vegetation, and climate. The high price of affluence has been at the expense of many environmental issues, to include acid rain, nuclear waste storage, groundwater depletion, and toxic chemical spills. These issues have damaged the region's water supply, polluted the air, and has caused widespread soil erosion. Resource consumption is high in North America, especially for water and fossil fuels. Many environmental initiatives have addressed these issues, but a lot of work is still left to be done, and people in this region are continuing to seek solutions in the area of sustainability. This map shows many of the environmental issues that threaten North America. Acid rain damage caused by industrially produced sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides in the atmosphere is widespread in regions downwind from industrial source areas, mainly in the upper Midwest region. Elsewhere, widespread water pollution, Cities with high levels of air pollution and zones of accelerating groundwater depletion pose health dangers and economic costs to the residents of the region. Since 1970, however, both Americans and Canadians have become increasingly responsive to the dangers posed by these environmental challenges. Please pause the video and read the information contained in the boxes. This chart shows the growing popularity of fossil fuels in the United States during the late 19th century as coal, oil, and then natural gas supplanted wood consumption. Also note that new technologies such as hydropower, geothermal, nuclear power are growing just in the last 50 years as well, but still not the same rate as the others. This region is actively pursuing renewable energy resources as alternatives to the non-renewable resources of coal, oil, and gas. However, there has been an increased interest in hydraulic fracturing in recent years. Fracking, as it's called, is a drilling technique that extracts oil out of the shale rock far below the Earth's surface. Fracking is far from perfect and is not without environmental challenges. This photo shows an aerial view from near Fort McMurray, which suggests the massive scale of development associated with Alberta's tar sands project. Alberta's tar sands are the biggest energy project in the world, currently producing 1.9 million barrels of oil a day. Largely located in Alberta, the tar sands deposits are distributed over an area larger than England. Canada has the third largest oil reserves in the world after Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, and is the biggest supplier of oil to the United States, the world's largest oil consumer. Global climate change has made an impact on North America. The most vulnerable areas are the high latitude, alpine environments, and coastal lowlands. Changes in Arctic temperatures, sea ice, and sea levels have increased coastal erosion, affecting migrating whale and polar bear populations, as well as places a stress on traditional ways of life for the Eskimo and Inuit people. With the increase in heat, many places have experienced an increase in drought conditions and wildfires. Some experts even believe that there is a connection between global warming and an increase in hurricanes and intensity due to warmer ocean temperatures. Lastly, basic redistribution of plants, animals, and crops are already underway due to the warming of our temperatures. For example, in western North America mountains, expanding mountain pine beetle populations are rapidly infesting lodgepole and whitebark pine forests. These photos show a before and current picture of glaciers in retreat. With prospects for further global warming, the outlook is bleak for many of North America's alpine glaciers. This pair of images records changes in the Grinnell Glacier and Montana's Glacier National Park between 1940 and 2006. Humans have occupied North America for at least the last 12 to 25,000 years. However, over the last 400 years, this region has witnessed an extraordinary transformation as Europeans, Africans, and Asians arrived, disrupted Native American peoples, and created dramatically new patterns of human settlement. This chart shows the current population statistics for the region by country. Take a look at the total population for Canada and the United States. What is remarkable is that even though Canada is larger in land area, the United States has a population much larger, creating a huge difference in population density. The other anomaly is the net migration rate. Canada's is 7 and the United States is 2. The higher the number, the higher the influx of immigrants. Please pause the video and answer the following question. What could be a reason or reasons that the net migration rate is so vastly different between the two very similar countries in many respects? In other words, explore what could be different between the two countries that cause the net migration rate to be as stated. In your own words and using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific in your answer. There are a few population patterns that dominate this region. First is the many urban metropolitan areas that cluster people in and around a city and create uneven patterns of settlement in the region. Second is Canada's unusual population pattern in that about 90% of its population live within 100 miles of the U.S. border. Third, there are a declustering of urban areas in both countries that are located within the pattern of a corridor in both. Canada's Main Street corridor contains most of its urban populations and include the cities of Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and Hamilton. The U.S.'s megalopolis corridor includes the cities of Boston all the way to Washington, D.C., which includes the cities of New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. Other core clusterings include the sprawling urban centers around the southern Great Lakes, including Chicago and Detroit, and the Pacific coast of Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland, San Francisco, San Jose, and Los Angeles to San Diego. Can you see these patterns in the population density map? Furthermore, both countries utilize census data for many decisions. For example, census data is used to adjust election districts, apportion tax dollars more efficiently, and help fund public services. Businesses use census data for market research and to plan location and product sales strategies. And lastly, geographers use census data to solve a variety of demographic, social, and economic problems. The photo shows the urban skyline of New York City. Midtown Manhattan's cluster of high-rise buildings remains one of North America's most dramatic urban skylines. This map shows the vast European settlement patterns that occurred in this region from the 1600s to the early 1900s, displacing and sometimes eradicating the indigenous population. The first stage between 1600 and 1750 was the establishment of the English and French colonies along the eastern coastline. During the second stage between 1750 and 1850 was the first western movement to what was called then the frontier, generally east of the Mississippi, where lands were ideal for agriculture. The third stage between 1850 and 1910 was the Great Movement to the west. Many people were attracted to the west because of gold and silver found in those areas. In addition to the historic settlement patterns as mentioned, North America has witnessed some significant migration patterns over the years. Westward movement has always been the trend of North America. This movement, fueled by overcrowding in the east, coupled with new economic activities such as technology, along with the region's scenic attractions, has given rise to new settlement patterns in western states, such as California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. African Americans have also generated distinctive patterns of interregional migration. Most blacks remain economically tied to the South after the Civil War, but with new opportunities in the North and West, by the early 1900s, they moved to urban centers in great numbers. Before that time, about 90% of blacks lived in the South, whereas today only about 55% of the nation's 45 million blacks reside within those states. Another migration pattern that we have seen is a rural to urban migration. Over the last couple centuries, people moved from the country into the city, whereas living in the city went from about 5% of the population to 80% today. A shift in economic opportunity accounted for much of that transformation. The photo shows downtown Houston. Houston's energy-based economy has helped make it one of North America's fastest growing cities since 1990. Growth of the Sun Belt South has been another popular trend in the last century. After 1970, southern states from the Carolinas to Texas grew much more rapidly than states in the Northeast and Midwest. Economic opportunity and high amenity retirement locations have been the major draw, not to mention mild and warmer weather enjoyed year-round. Lastly, large cities in the last 40 years have seen a significant loss in population due to people moving out into smaller towns and rural areas. This non-metropolitan growth has been attracting younger lifestyle migrants, where they create jobs in affordable smaller cities and rural settings that are rich in amenities and often removed from the perceived problems of urban America. Cities of the early 1900s were generally organized in rings around a highly focused central business district, CBD for short, that contained much of the city's retailing and office functions. Residential districts beyond the CBD were added as the city expanded, with higher income groups seeking more desirable locations on the outside edge of the urbanized area. The modern pattern has shifted. Many U.S. cities became increasingly decentralized as they moved through eras dominated by the pedestrian horse car, electric streetcar, automobile, and freeway. Each era left a distinctive mark on the metropolitan America, including the recent growth of edge cities on the urban periphery. Each edge city functions as its own urban center. The diagram depicts a typical urban center as it undergoes decentralization, in which metropolitan areas sprawl in all directions and suburbs take on many of the characteristics of traditional downtowns. Notice how this growth occurred along the established transportation routes. Cities are also undergoing some recent distinctive landscape changes as they meet the challenges of inner city problems and tensions of poverty, racial discrimination, and unemployment that occurred since the decentralization of cities began. One such change is gentrification. Gentrification is the process of rehabilitating deteriorated inner city areas, mainly displacing lower income residents by higher income residents and creating a more cosmopolitan urban setting. Another settlement pattern emerging is called new urbanism. New urbanism is an urban design stressing higher density, mixed-use, pedestrian-scaled neighborhoods where residents might be able to walk to work, school, and local entertainment. The regular rectangular look of this Iowa town and the nearby rural setting reveals that North America penchant for simplicity and efficiency. In the United States, the Township and Range Survey System stamped such predictable patterns across vast portions of North American interior. Look on any county's map of the United States and you will see this distinct pattern in states mostly west of the Mississippi and in the Midwest. North America's cultural geography is both globally dominant and internally pluralistic. Even though many outsiders consider the culture threatening and imperialistic due to its Anglo roots, no region is more accepting of its own diversity to other cultures as is this region. North America is called the melting pot of the world, in which it has a wide array of ethnic groups. In other words, North America is a region of immigrants who quickly and efficiently assimilated into the cultural landscape that exists today. The diagram shows the ethnic makeup of the region today and projected for 2030 and 2050. By the middle of the 21st century, almost 1 in 3 Americans will be Hispanic, and non-Hispanic whites will achieve minority status amid an increasingly diverse U.S. population. Annual immigration rates peaked around 1900, declined in the early 20th century, and then surged again, particularly since 1970. The source areas of these migrants have also shifted. Note the decreased role of Europeans currently versus the growing importance of Asians and Latin Americans. California, Texas, and Florida claim more than half of the nation's Hispanic population, and California alone is still home to 1/3 of the country's Asian population. Cultural and ethnic identity is often strongly tied to place. North America's cultural diversity is expressed geographically in 2 ways. First, similar people congregate near one another and derive meaning from those territories they occupy in common. Second, culture marks the visible scene. The everyday landscape is filled with artifacts, habits, language, and values of different groups. The map on the left displays a sampling of cultural groups that strongly identify with traditional local and regional homelands on a regional scale. While on the local scale, the map on the right displays the different ethnic groups and overlapping of these groups in Los Angeles, California. Although many portions of North America feature great religious diversity, selected regions are dominated by Roman Catholicism or various Protestant denominations. Portions of rural Utah and Idaho, dominated by the Mormon faith, display some of the West's highest concentrations of any single religion. Please pause the video and answer the following. Reviewing the 2 maps below, list 2 specific correlations between ethnicity patterns and religious dominance. In your own words and using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific in your answer. Not only is North America influencing other cultures around the world, but other cultures around the world are influencing North America. North America is experiencing the greatest influx of foreign-born immigrants and tourists than ever before. This influx has created global challenges with the way North Americans communicate. There has been a great debate over the usage of English, but evidence indicates that the region's immigrants are learning English more rapidly today, seeing it as a powerful way to gain an entrance into the economic mainstream. The growing popularity of Spanglish, a hybrid combination of English and Spanish spoken by Hispanic Americans, also illustrates the complexities of North American globalization. Today, the vast majority of North Americans have internet, which allows this region to experience globalization on a larger scale. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have redefined the kinds of communication and networks that shape their daily lives. The media has had a huge impact on globalization through the televising of North American sports around the globe. The photo depicts Japan's love affair with baseball. North Americans' passion for baseball has readily leaped across the Pacific. Today, many Japanese follow their favorite teams on both sides of the ocean. In the photo, fans of the Yakult Swallows Japan League baseball team sing and hold umbrellas overhead as one of their team's players hit a home run at Tokyo Jingju Stadium. Many North Americans enjoy ethnic restaurants and consume a large amount of foreign beer. Rising beer imports, including many more expensive foreign brands, exemplify the pattern. The nation's beer drinkers know no bounds to their thirsts. Mexico dominates along with the varied European, Asian, and Australian producers. The United States and Canada have always been close allies and key trading partners. The North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, was created in 1989 to facilitate that relationship, which forged the world's largest trading bloc. However, this agreement has had some challenges. U.S. jobs have been lost to Mexico, and Mexico's economy has become increasingly dependent on demand from the United States, creating problems in times of declining consumption in North America. The other border challenge that creates tension is environmental degradation in one nation affecting another, including air pollution and water issues. For example, Canada has protested North Dakota's plans to control the north-flowing Red River, which leads into Manitoba, while some Montana residents are nervous that Canadian logging and mining interests in British Columbia will increase pollution on the south-flowing North Flathead River. On the other hand, Canada and the United States have had remarkable cooperation around the usage of the Great Lakes involving water resources, transportation, and environmental quality. Both Canada and the United States are federal states, in that they allocate a portion of political power to units of government beneath their national level, unlike unitarian states such as France, where power is centralized at the national level. However, the difference is that the United States retained most of the political power at the national level, while Canada released most of its national power to its provinces, creating more autonomous regions. This has not been without issue for Canada. Quebec has long supported the separation from Canada due to economic and cultural differences. Immigration policies have been an issue long before today's challenges with the vast number of undocumented immigrants crossing the region's borders. Immigration is not a new issue facing the region. 400 years ago, native peoples had to endure the aggressive influx of foreigners into their homelands. Today, within the United States, there are four key issues at the center of debate. Number one, how many legal immigrants should be allowed in the country? 2, how to tighten up the flow, especially along the Mexican border, of the undocumented immigrants. 3, an epidemic growth of drug-related violence near the border has soured relations between Mexico and the United States. And 4, how to deal fairly with the millions of existing undocumented workers within the United States already. Please pause the video and answer the following. What are your thoughts about the 4 key immigration issues facing the United States? In your own words and using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific with your answer. North America possesses the world's most powerful economy and most affluent population. It produces some of the world's most sought-after manufactured goods and services, and its people consume huge amounts of resources. North America's size, geographic diversity, and resource abundance have all contributed to the region's global dominance in economic affairs, and due to its human skills, has enabled North Americans to achieve high levels of economic and social development. This table shows important economic and social development indicators for the region. In Chapter 1, we discussed what each indicator meant. As you can see, both countries in this region are about equal with some minor differences. North America is primed for agriculture, and it remains a dominant land use across much of the region. As a matter of fact, it has one of the best food-producing systems in the world. Farming has practically changed from smaller individualized farms to large commercial farming called agribusiness. Less and less people have become employed in this farming in this region due to the commercialization of farming techniques and equipment. Agribusiness involves large-scale business enterprises that control closely integrated segments of food production from farm to grocery store. This map shows the major agricultural and manufacturing activities of North America. Varied environmental settings, settlement histories, and economic conditions have produced the modern map of North American agriculture and manufacturing. A growing number of major metropolitan areas play increasingly visible roles in the global economy. North America has seen a shift in employment structure, which has spurred a sectorial transformation from the primary sector, which is a sector focused on natural resource extraction, to one with more employment in the secondary, tertiary, and quaternary sectors. Secondary is manufacturing or industrial, tertiary is services, and quaternary is information processing. Location plays an important factor in where industry is located. Petroleum-related manufacturing has transformed many Gulf Coast settings, as you see in the photo on top. Much of Houston's 20th century growth was fueled by the dramatic expansion of oil-related industries. The Port of Houston remains a major center of North American refinery and petrochemical operations. The high-technology industry landscapes of California's Silicon Valley contrast sharply with the look of the traditional manufacturing centers as shown in the photo on the bottom. Here, similar industries form complex links benefiting from their proximity to one another and to nearby universities such as Stanford and Berkeley. Even though North America has great wealth, many differences persist and have caused the gap to widen between the rich and the poor. The economic recession of the late 2000s was partially to blame for this widening even further. Much of the recession affected the low-income population, and they are still plagued by its slow recovery. On the flip side, the photo shows the entrance to Emerald Bay, a high-end gated community that offers luxury living in the upscale portion of Laguna Beach, California. This is an example of the wealthier, exclusive landscape settings that you can find in this region. Even though high school graduation rates have risen, many poor and minorities are less likely to hold a college degree. Another challenge, particularly in the United States, is debating an effective national education policy in the face of a very tradition of local control of education. The gender gap is still yet to be closed when it comes to differences in salary, working conditions, and political power. Women still only earn, on average, 80% of what their male counterparts earn. Women also still play modest roles in the corporate world. Even though we have seen some of the best health care and facilities available to our aging population, some issues challenge the system. A recent report on aging in the United States predicted that the most elderly population group will jump from 12% today to about 20% by year 2050. This increase may put a strain on the already expensive system, since there is also a rising incidence of chronic diseases among the older populations, such as widespread alcoholism and heart disease. This map shows the children living in poverty in North America. Within North America, the South, Appalachia, and portions of the Southwest feature high regional rates of child poverty. Overall, 22% of U.S. children and 14% of Canadian children are in families living at or below the poverty level. Please pause the video and answer the following. What might explain high childhood poverty in the Deep South? What about California and the Southwest? In your own words and using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific with your answer. North America is so intricately entwined with the rest of the world that if there were periods of international instability, the region would be more vulnerable to economic downturns. North America has a number of global cities that serve as key connecting points and decision-making centers in the world economy, such as New York City, Toronto, Chicago, and Los Angeles. With these cities, the region has become prominent in global trade with a diversity of products and services. This region is also the center of global money flows and economic influence, and due to its stability, attracts huge amounts of foreign capital. Today, the U.S. is the largest destination of foreign investment in the world. North American based multinational corporations are now expanding their outsourcing of jobs, which also cause tensions among laborers in the region, fearing their jobs will be lost to workers in other countries. The image is of a container ship leaving the port of Seattle. Major North American ports such as Seattle are key links in the facilitating global trade between the region and the rest of the world. Standard-sized container shipping modules can be easily stacked, stored, and moved in such settings.